Okay, guys, good morning. So, in this moment, I'm going to tell you in a brief way um, this other part of the literary analysis that is the elements of a play. So, let's get started. In this case, when we're doing the analysis and we were categorizing the elements of a play, we found six specific elements of a play, and I'm going to start one by one. In this case, we have the first one that is the plot. When we talk about it specifically about the plot, is the order of the events or the order of the situations that occur in the play. When we were doing the analysis of the plot, we divided the plot into five moments: introduction, the rising actions, the climax, the falling action, and the resolution. When we talk about the introduction, in this case, we have that Blanche Dubois arrives at her sister Stella's apartment. In the Rising Action, we have several moments. So we have Stanley Kowalski beats his wife Stella. Stanley overhears Blanche tell Stella to leave him. Blanche and Mitch get romantically serious. Stanley tells Stella and Mitch about Blanche's past. Mitch tells Blanche he won't marry her. Stanley accuses Blanche of lying and rapes her. That is part of the climax. And for the falling action, we have Blanche becomes mentally unstable. And for the resolution, we have Stella sends Blanche to a state mental hospital. The second category, or the second part in this case, the second element is the characters. The characters, of course, form a crucial part of the story, and they are part also of the plot. They intervene during the plot. In this case, for the Streetcar Named Desire, we have Blanche Dubois, that is the main character. We have Stanley and Stella Kowalski. We have Mitch, Alan, Doctor. We have Eunice. We have a matron, a Mexican and a Negro woman. We have Pablo. We have Steve, and we have a young man. For the dialogue, that is the third element that you see in there. In this case, keep in mind that the dialogue refers to the conversation or the interactions between the characters in the play. When we were doing the analysis, we found out that there are three types of dialogues that are very present on the Streetcar Named Desire. The first one is that is straightforward. The second one is that is naturalistic, and also that the dialogue, in some parts tend to be so poetic. When we talk about straightforward, in this case, it is because the characters are very direct on the things that they want to say and to express. So there is no variations on the way they mention the things or something like that. No, they are very direct. That is the meaning of straightforward. And naturalistic, of course, in this case, even though that is scripted, the characters don't need and actually don't sound scripted or acted. In this case, it's like a normal conversation, a regular conversation of a day-to-day situation. And when we talk about the part of poetic, in this case, it is because of one of the characters that is the main one, that is Blanche Dubois, and that is very linked with some other thing that we are going to see later on, and is the social background, also the academic background that each character has. As Blanche Dubois has a very important role in the society, and she has a very aristocratic and a very good position in the society, the background and the education that she received was the same. So for that reason, in the speech that she uses, she tends to be more poetic, more formal, more stylish than the rest of the characters. Also, as I was mentioned to you previously, one of the most important things that, in order to take into account the types of dialogue that the characters use, is the social background that each one of them has. Sorry. So, for that reason, we can find also that there are some characters that use colloquialism, uses slang, and also they use, or we can have the presence of metaphors to enrich the kind of dialogue. Also, the metaphors is present in the poetical dialogue that is presented by Blanche Dubois. The fourth element that we are going to present, that I'm going to present, is the setting. when we talk about the setting, it refers automatically to the time and the place where the story is set or is being told. When doing the analysis and based on some researches of this, we found that a streetcar named Desire is set in the French Quarter of New Orleans, and the year is 1947. That is curious because that is the same year in which the play was written. So, thanks to the setting that is 1947 and that the year in which the play was written was 1947, we get to know the author's context and the author's life, specifically in that time. Even though we need to take into account, even though that Williams describes the setting on New Orleans, he is very empathetic and emphatic, sorry, and he emphasizes on a specific address in that city, that is the 632 Elysian Fields Avenue, between the railroad tracks and the Mississippi River. Thanks to the context, we get to know specifically that, and of course, thanks to some researches and some analyses that have been made for this play. But also, thanks to the context, we get to know that we have a very huge French influence in the setting that is at the same time combined with the American culture. So for that reason, we have places, we have environments that are kind of French, but at the same time are very American. For example, instead of having French boulevards like those beautiful quarters with stores, with I don't know, flower shops and things like that, we have the American concept of a city that is very with the industrialization, uh, more productive. In the American culture, they don't want a quarter that is, or they don't want a neighborhood so well designed and so beautiful, with flowers, with specific details, artistic details. No, they want a place that like serves for something, like serves to the community, that is very like a working class place. So for that reason, in this story, we get to know that American and French influence. All right. The fifth element that we get to check in here is the conflict. When we talk about the conflict, it refers automatically to the challenge that main characters need to solve to achieve their goals. In the conflict is very connected to one of the first elements of the plot that I mentioned to you, that is the falling action. Because in this case, when we talk about the conflict, it goes around the story of the main characters, that is Blanche Dubois. The major internal conflict happens with Blanche and her issues, her problem with the age. Continuously, the problem of the age increases, and she's like so bored with that because she doesn't want that the time passes, that the age passes. Because of the social background, the image is very important. The appearance is very important, and that places the position of her in that society, in that context in a specific. And she believes that with the age, it may be a difficult problem, because she's not going to be like a beautiful again, or no longer be beautiful. Um, she has that conflict. With the appearance, and also we have another conflict, that is the situation, a problem between Blanche and Stanley, that they are two completely opposite poles. Blanche is a very classy person, a very stylish person from the high society, and we have on the other hand Stanley, that is more for the working class. They have a disparate social backgrounds, and that is another situation, that is another conflict that generates the situations and some actions, some moments in the during the development of the play. Okay, to finish in this case, we have the number 6, that is the resolution. In this case, when we talk about the resolution, is the unfolding or the solution to a complex issue in a story. The resolution, it's again connected with the situation of Blanche, and it is specifically with one part of her life, that is that Stella and Stanley, the other two characters, decide to send Blanche to a mental institution. And that is because, as we are going to see later, and as my partner explained, um, one of the most shocking situations of Blanche's life is that in one moment of her life, her mental stability and her mental um consciousness tends to fall down because of some situations in her past and in her present. So the resolution at the end, that is also one of the falling actions and one of the conflicts that is present during this story. That is Blanche's mental instability, and at the end the resolution is that she is being sent to a mental institution to treat this problem that she has. All right. Talking about a little bit about the stylistic effects, I also mentioned something about the atmosphere that is quite a little bit similar to to the environment, to the setting of the place. We have the suspense, we have the climax that I also mentioned, but I want to emphasize on the tone. We have talked also about the type of dialogue that the characters use, and in this case, we're going to combine it. We're going to mix it with this part that is the tone. The dialogue is the words, are the sentences that basically the characters, like the script that they have to follow. The tone is the way in which they need to make or they need to give uh, those structures, those sentences, etc. When we talk about the tone, we discovered quite amazing things. Similar to the other part, similar to the dialogue, we found that in the tone we have two specific types of tone, that is realistic and sympathetic. Realistic, why? Because even though that this is a scripted, that this is a play, uh, that the characters are need to be actors, the tone of the voice that they need to manage has to be very real. Has to be like if like the problem or the situations or the issues of the play are real or are happening in the like currently. So for that reason we say that is realistic, but also we say that is sympathetic and empathetic, because the tone that the characters need to use has to agree specifically, or have to agree with the moments that or the situations that happen during the play. If we have happy moments, the tone has to be enthusiastic, but if we have sad moments, of course we need to change the tone. hmm Also, we found that also that we have tones like very friendly, maternal, thoughtful. Um, then in this case, really really connects the public with the play automatically. Great, that is the part of the tone. And also, to finish in this part, one little thing that I want to mention, um, regarding like in the same line of the language and the tone, is the type of language that appears in here. And in this case in specific, I'm going to emphasize on the symbols that we can find in this play. For the symbols, we have the shadows, and something that in the play is called the Varsoviana polka. What happens in this case? When we talk about the shadows, well, the shadows are, again, thanks to the influence of the main character, that is Blanche. Uh, During the development of the scene number 10, Blanche and Stanley begin to quarrel, to have a fight, and the shadows start to appear on the wall behind Blanche. This represents automatically the beginning of Blanche's descent into the madness, but also represents the beginning of the mental instability. In this case, that also represents the Blanche's breakdown and the total ignorance of her reality. As I mentioned previously, like some seconds ago, uh, Blanche's mental issues start to appear during the play, and specifically at the end, they have a more influence, and the shadows represent that ignorance of her reality. She actually doesn't know what is happening around her because of the mental issues that she is having. And connected with that idea of the mental issues, we have the other symbol, that is the Varsoviana polka. The Varsoviana polka is a song that is played during the development, or the course of the play. In this case, that represents a story between Blanche and her husband Alan Gray. These songs basically reminds Blanche of when she lost saw her husband, and when he committed suicide. Why he committed suicide? The story is that one day she arrived to her house and she found Alan with another man on the bed. So that was shocking for her, but actually she didn't react in a very bad way. She was like kind of normal, to the point that they hang out the three together without any problem as friends, or as a couple of three. Could be, I can say like that, like a relationship of three people. And that was very funny, and that was very interesting, because normally in another situation another woman could react, or another person can react in another different way, more violent or things like that, but she was okay, let's say, with that. But because of that, Alan, that was her husband, her first husband, uh, Alan, because of that, he was like feeling so bad, because he felt that that wasn't okay, that that Blanche was acting like that, and he felt like bad for that reason, and for that he committed suicide. So the Varsoviana polka represents that situation when Alan died, he committed suicide, and that was the last time Blanche saw him. Sorry, and actually, all these events, or this chain of events, are very connected, because thanks, let's say thanks, or due to the the this situation, due to Alan's death, Blanche's mental instability begins. So the Varsoviana polka represents also the exact moment when Blanche's mental decline. So the mental issues begin because, of course, we thanks to this we understand that everything begins, all these problems begins because of her husband's death. So the Varsoviana polka sounds specifically in those moments when she remembers her husband, and she remembers that story, and when appears all the situation of the mental issues with Blanche. Okay, and in this case, well, that will be it, I will say. So, well, thank you so much for your attention.